I titled this live impromptu because it really was. I just walked in and I'm like, okay, I've got 40 minutes. I got a meeting in 50 minutes. So let's do this. Business owner, educator, and lifelong observer of politics and economics, making sense of complex issues. The only thing I can think of to talk about is my own grievances. So what are my grievances? Oh, what's Joe saying? When do we leave? Okay. I'll probably do this live for about half an hour and then I have to go. And that should give me a few clips to get me through to hi, Marianne. My opinion on the state of the world. So that's exactly what I was going to do, actually. I think that pretty much sums up the title for all my lives and clips. I think the state of the world. Oh, the US. No, look, okay, that's a good starting point. Thank you, Joe. I think I'm going to go back to what I said before the election, and that is, you're going to be okay. And I know that things are going to be horrible for a lot of people, and they are, and they always are. And they're going to be more horrible for a lot of people before it gets better. And the faith that I have in your country is that you don't have the set of conditions that have seen other countries under this stress slide into a worse situation, right? As people call it, sliding into tyranny. And I've said this, you guys have heard this from me numerous times. You can see all these videos on TikTok, and I see them all the time. Are we sliding into tyranny? Here's the checklist. Is the media being controlled? Are the elites being politicized? And all these things. Check, 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 check. You guys are checking all the boxes, right? No doubt about that. However, the other side of the ledger is that you're checking boxes and saying this is where other countries have slid into tyranny. But the other side of that is they also had these other conditions. And those other conditions are weak institutions. You don't have that. You have strong institutions. They had a highly corrupt civil service. You guys don't have that. They had a very short history of democracy. You have a very long history of democracy. In fact, the longest continuous democracy in history. So you have all these other things that nobody's talking about in your favor. And my belief, my faith, comes from that. Yes, are all the things that are happening now not good? But fundamentally, the superstructure that it's all standing on is solid. And there will be pain, but there will be recovery. I felt the same until last week. Right, okay, so I think, Joe, that's why I'm saying that. I can't talk about that, and I can't talk about him. And there's a few reasons why I can't, but the basic main reason I can't talk about that is because I didn't know him. I didn't know about that. All I knew of was, and this is the only comment I'll make about it, the only thing I knew about him was from a long time ago when I saw the videos of the campus debates where it was change my mind. I forget even what the questions were, but random sort of things about society changed my mind. And I thought, oh, that's so unfair. That was what I thought at the time when I saw those things. And that's why I never followed him anymore after that. I never looked at his stuff. If it popped up, I never bothered with it because I rejected it early. Because it's unfair. It's unfair for an intelligent, well-versed, educated, male, older, to, randomly expect to have a fair debate with children going in between classes, and I thought, I felt so sorry for those kids, because they would walk up to his table and go, well, I think it's unfair because, and he was ready. They weren't ready for that confrontation. They believed in something intrinsically, that something was unfair or that something was right, and they hadn't gone about their day thinking, I'm going to debate that today. And so it was, I thought the whole thing was really unfair, but so that was the end of my experience there. So post that, right, now that that's happened, and there's a whole backlash about that. My grievance is not to do with that. What's emerged for me as a grievance is that people keep saying on the right that they're restricted, that they're not allowed to do these things. There's a war on Christmas. There's a war on Christianity. There's a war on the right. I think I've said it enough times now that TikTok might get angry at me. And so it seems uncanny that they are able to say this so loudly, so frequently, so much, if they're not allowed to say it. It seems odd, doesn't it, that some of the biggest media guys are right-wing. So if there's this whole, silencing of the right, where is it? Because it's not in the world that I see. It might be on campuses, but campuses are always like that. We used to say, a lot of terrible things about some of the people on campus. I was in the right wing then, but one of the things was everyone's left until graduation. You're all, we all want to look after everybody and take care of the world, and until you graduate, and then you go in the real world, and that is a thing. But ultimately, this idea that there's a war on Christmas. Are you serious? I feel, maybe, this is anecdotal, but I feel like Christmas is coming earlier and stronger every year. What war on Christmas? And then the war on Christianity. I think the evangelical church is the fastest growing church in the US. Like, it's growing massively. How can there be a war on Christianity if it's growing massively? So all these things that they say that are happening to them are just their way of, if I'm going to be really honest, that they have no substance. They actually have no real claims. And this is what people in a debate, or people in, what they really believe is that you must think like me. And if you're not thinking like me, then I'm being silenced. That's the only way I can come around to it, is that if somebody thinks there's a war on Christmas, the only reason they think that is because every single person isn't celebrating Christmas like they do. Or if there's a war on the right, it's because every single person isn't right-wing. That's the way I see it. And just to fold in my whole left-right perspective here, because you guys know me, that I'm not that, I'm not that, why do I look so weird? That I'm not that left and I'm not that right anymore. Is that the left, and I know this is a bit hackneyed, but the left wants to break things. It doesn't want to hurt anyone. I mean, maybe the 1%, but, it's pretty standard in left-wing ideology that what they want to destroy is systems. What they want to destroy is machinery at worst, government. They don't want to destroy people. And the right can't say that, because the right is always about excluding people. It's always about some group is doing something to us and we must stop them. Whereas the left, it's all like, this system doesn't work for everybody. We want to change it to this system. That's the basic difference. So anyway, so I understand, Joe, what you're saying. And you don't need me telling you it's going to be okay. But I'm glad I'm not there to deal with it. I am going through my own thing here with the rise of the anti-foreigner sentiment here. And I've had one friend call me, and it's just psychological, but he felt like, he feels like people are just looking at him differently now. And I know that that is what you guys have been talking about for years, this idea that it's now okay. What you called the dog whistles and the giving authority to those voices, to, it's okay now to call ICE. That's not cool. That's never been a cool thing to do. And it's okay to call people out for not lining up with the government. And I feel like it's happening here too. So 1% degree compared to what you guys are going through. But all I can say is that there and here, in the long run, it will be okay. And I just listened to a podcast about youth and the mobility, and really interesting and positive and uplifting things that I see as, for someone who has a teenage daughter, like, okay, she may be going into a world that's changing rapidly, but it may actually be getting better. And some of the statistics in there were that young people are less nationalistic. Young people are much more mobile. They will move more times in their life, and there will be less borders for them because every country wants them. And it's like, oh yeah, hold on. Every country wants young people. It's not just the US and Canada and Australia anymore. It's everywhere. And China will too. And Russia does, but they're in no position to get people, but China is. And so one of the things I'm exploring just out of interest is an idea of a reverse diaspora, where this writer, I can't remember his name, calls himself, he would say, I'm in America, I'm Indian American. But when I go living back in Asia now, I'm an American Asian. That's a concept that may become a thing, that not just kids of immigrants, but other people as well. But there may be a trend towards leaving, not so much, maybe Europe, UK, America, Australia, Canada, and going back to Asia. And that's an interesting sort of phenomenon I'm going to be looking into. Wow, I think we covered a lot in 10, 15 minutes. Although, so I don't know Jimmy Kimmel. It's for me, a lot of this is a postmodern experience. And if you don't understand what that means, it means that I know about these people, I know of them, I know things that happened to them, like I know Jimmy Kimmel got cancelled. I don't really know who he is. I've seen clips of his show before. I know he's a late night show thing guy, but I don't know what he believes in. I don't know his angle. I don't know anything about him, so I can't comment on it. Oh, he's hysterical. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm missing out. Yeah, I can't think about that situation in particular right now. And, you know, look at me, I'm even too scared to say it. I'm too scared to say his name. I don't really want to talk about it. I don't have any authority to talk about it, although I don't believe you need authority to talk about things. I think anybody can talk about anything, anytime, as long as they don't say that, you know, they're correct when they don't know. I'm not going to say who it is because it's the biggest news in the US right now. Hi, Deanna. You found us. Okay. So, yeah, so I'm not going to talk about that. So what can I talk about? What was something else? Oh, just random numbers. Did you know, because this is what I do when I listen to podcasts, I listen to podcasts that have lots of numbers in them, that if the immigrants of the world that are moving around the world right now stopped and formed their own country, it would be the 4th largest country in the world. That's how many people are moving right now. If all the immigrants just started their own country, it would be the 4th largest country in the world. Oh, here's another great statistic. The internal migrants of China, so that is the people moving around in China, is greater than the total number of migrants in the world. Let me say that again. So all the immigrants that are moving from one country to another, if you add up that number and then compared it to the number of people that are moving internally in China, there's more people moving internally in China than there are immigrants in the whole world. So when I get things like I got today saying, China is facing a population collapse and their economy will be, you know, at the end of it by 2050. It's like, what? They'll have 700 million young people. That's twice the population of the US. I think with that many young people, they'll be okay. And then there are all those other factors that contribute to that, you know, pensions and taxes, and sure, there are issues. I'm sure they'll be able to deal with it. It's like in Australia, we used to say in Australia that Indonesia was nothing. You know, we're in Australia, and right just above us is Indonesia. It's like some people are like, oh, Indonesia is a threat to Australia's national security and all these things. We had the communists were there. It was big for a second in the 60s. Indonesia nearly became a communist country, right? So there's this sort of fear in Australia of Indonesia. And then there'd be people that say, oh, Indonesia is nothing, it's just a backward, undeveloped country. This is when I was growing up. It's like, in 1990, when I started studying at university, Indonesia's middle-class population was greater than the whole population of Australia. So just the people with money, just the average person in Indonesia, exceeded the number of Australians in total. So I think, you know, when you talk about Indonesia being an undeveloped country, it's like, hold on, these guys are wealthier than us. They're doing better. So don't be so quick to judge. Coming back to China, I think with that amount of population, there aren't concerns wildly that it's going to collapse. I think, do they have a challenge? Yes. Are they going to collapse? Most certainly not. Russia could, Japan could, but could China collapse with the devastatingly low number of 700 million young people? No, I think they'll be okay. Where are they all going? That's a good question. So where are all the immigrants going, or the Chinese? Well, obviously the Chinese are all heading to the East Coast, aren't they? West Coast? East Coast. So globally, where are all the immigrants going? So it's a lot of young people, increasingly women, which is interesting. We have, in immigration history for most of us, the OECD countries that absorb immigrants, we historically have taken mixed groups, families, extended families, couples, young people. That shifted a little bit around 2010-ish to be more men, more young men. And that's why I say Germany and Northern Europe, even the UK, with their immigration problem, it's not an immigration problem. Immigration is always good. It's a young man problem. And that young man problem is the same problem that the domestic young man has. It's malaise. It's lack of social mobility. It's lack of the social contract that if they work hard, they will get somewhere. That's gone. In Germany, they were really good at providing the infrastructure and systems to absorb large amounts of young men, educate them, train them, employ them. But when that number exceeded their ability to do that, that's when you ended up with a young man problem. And a lot of Northern Europe has that. It's not a culture problem. It's not a clash of civilizations. It's not a religious issue. It's a young man issue. So that's our second phase. Now, the third phase of immigration that could be coming is young women. That young women are in such demand around the world. Why? I'm not being sexist here. This is just the numbers. Young women do things in the health area, like nursing. They do things in education, and they do things in, technical health, pharmaceutical related stuff a lot. Think nurses from the Philippines. This is becoming huge, and the Philippines is starting to run out, and there's less incentive for women to leave the Philippines now because they can actually make a good income at home. Bangladesh, other countries like this are also focusing on training nurses. That's who's moving. Young women are being absorbed by Canada, US, UK, Australia because of their nursing skills, their pharmaceutical healthcare, and teaching training, which is fantastic. I think if we said we were getting a lot of young women as compared to a lot of young men, I think it's a different story. However, I still think that the overall problem in all of our countries is that social mobility. And that is something that is very easily fixed. Very easily fixed. We just don't do it. And the reason we don't do it is because the right wing, who are always complaining that they are somehow being silenced, are in charge of everything. And so much so that the opposition party are nearly as right-wing as they are. So this comes around to my always talking about neoliberal economics, that the Democrats and the Republicans are the same on this until they're not. Until someone on the other side, a Bernie Sanders or a someone of that kind, comes along and says, no, let's go back to doing mixed economics again, which is what some Northern European countries you'll see doing, and certainly Germany has been doing, and UK needs to, with the Labour government that they have, they won't do it, but they're like the Democrats too. They're kind of too scared to do these things now because the Overton windows shifted there as well, and now everything that involves the state reacting to the economy is called socialism when it's not. Which brings me back to China, who are getting it right because they're actually mixing in capitalism with their socialism, and guess what? That's what we used to do the other way around. So they're getting great results because they're doing what we used to do. So just go back to doing that. That's why I also talk about this convergence, that possibly the answer to And Trump has done it a couple of times with the Intel deal, the US Steel deal. All these things are the right thing to do. Lol, go live in China then, buddy. Jimmy McNulty, go live in China. Are you communist? No. See, it sounds like a homework question. That is homework. This is homework for everyone. Are you a communist? See, that's the sort of thing that people say to someone like me when they don't know what mixed economics is. And when that statement is someone who's been brainwashed by the Newt Gingrich 1990, when was that? 1989? No, 1996. Anyway, that first statement that he made about using language to shift the people's ideas of what is left and right. And, we used to think that state ownership of utility was normal, that some state investment in companies was helpful. And it's gone so extreme that we can't even do those things anymore. China's doing it like crazy. And we're missing out. Obama did it when he saved the banks and and Detroit, the car makers. I mean, at that time, I was very much of the mind that he should have let them fail. But, they bailed them out. What was that called? Socialism? What Trump's doing now, getting a kickback from Intel, although they haven't sold any yet, have they? Getting a kickback from Intel being allowed to sell those chips to China now. That's illegal. Under the Constitution, that is illegal. But it's a good idea. If you can get that company to voluntarily pay 15% of their earnings from the Chinese market to the US government, I think it's wonderful. It's certainly not socialism. But when the Democrats say they would do something like that, it's immediately far left extremism. It's hypocritical. Are you a communist? Look at me. Do I look like a communist? These books, you can buy them on Amazon. I know, that was not fair. Sorry, Jimmy, I will apologize for calling you brainwashed. I didn't say uneducated, did I? But, it bothers me when people say things like that because it's just so wrong. Are you a communist? No, of course I'm not a communist. Okay, Fidel Castro promised my grandparents the same things. Yeah, you missed the beginning of the live, Jimmy, that's all I can say. How do I feel? Thanks, Harold. Finally, we get to talk about me. I live in a very rural area. I mean, and everybody knows me here, so I don't feel that. But, there's a backlash going on here, and I don't think it'll be too bad. But I don't feel uneasy. I do feel concerned for my daughter, because there is that one of the things that this party that won one seat in the 2 elections ago, and in the last election went from 1 seat to 15. There's 300 and something, so they're not the government, but from 1 to 15, I can do the math on that and say that's a 15 times improvement. 14. These guys, one of their beliefs, one of their policies is that immigrants with citizenship, so you've come to Japan and you've gotten Japanese citizenship, can't run for elected office, cannot vote. This is one of their policies. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's That's not crazy, right? I would say that's crazy. But a lot of people wouldn't say that. A lot of people on the right would say that's reasonable. These immigrants are new. They haven't yet totally, shown allegiance. Sure, they've gotten citizenship, but still, okay, all right. But this party wants to extend that to their children. So that would be my daughter, who is a Japanese citizen. She is a Japanese citizen. And they want to take her voting rights away. And she couldn't run for office. Now nobody's for that, right? I've lost all supporters for that, right? Let me go further. And their children. Yeah. Yeah, right? So let's just recap that. Not just me, not just my daughter, but her children as well cannot vote or run for elected office. That's cuckoo. Yeah, that's what they want. That's not going to happen. That's what they want. That's what they believe. So yeah, are foreigners that are permanent residents or citizens in Japan feeling a little uneasy? Yeah, they're feeling a little uneasy right now. And I will have to end this here, and I will end it on, this is only because the economy sucks. It's only because I went shopping yesterday. That's what I had to do for my work. I went shopping yesterday. Okay, it could be an exaggeration, but it cost me nearly twice as much as it did last year. And I haven't had an income increase. No, I haven't. Right? So people are suffering in Japan now. And what's the first thing that happens in Japan? An anti-immigrant party wins 14 more seats than it did last time. Sound familiar? It's global. It's normal. It happens. It's been happening forever in human history. As soon as the economy goes down, somebody has to be blamed. Can't possibly be us. Can't possibly be our economic system. No, it has to be that other, that thing that I can see in front of my face, not this, ideology or theory that is used to run the economy. That's too complicated and too invisible. They go straight to what they see. And then the politicians cash in on that. US is doing that right now. Europe will be doing it more. UK is doing it. Australia is definitely doing that. And Japan is now doing it. So that's where we are. As soon as the economy goes down, it's somebody else's fault. Yeah, sorry, Jimmy. And thank you, a person, for calling me out on that. Sorry, Jimmy, but that just got me a little bit. And I want you to stick around. I want you to follow, and I want you to look at my other videos. And I really would like to, and I can't do it right now, I really would like to go into a bit of a discussion about what Jimmy said there. Fidel Castro promised my grandparents the same things. And I think that is a really good topic that I would like to talk about, but I can't do it right now. So, yeah, it's actually really simple, and it's really, it's really basic. It's exactly what the Chinese did. Very briefly, I got like 2 minutes. If you take what happened in Cuba and say that that's exactly what, the Chinese government did, Mao did, all these things, and they failed, but they changed. China opened up these things called SEZs, the Special Economic Zones, and basically announced that they would be running parallel systems. Now, I know that Cuba also has been doing this. So what Castro promised your grandparents failed. But what subsequent governments have done has been a little bit better. There has been a great improvement in Cuba, as there has been in China, when they adopted our system, when they adopted capitalism but mixed it like we used to do. And that's where I think the convergence is. That if Cuba and China and the US and Australia and Japan all went back to having their governments react to economic circumstances rather than apply an ideology, we would be in a much better place. Not perfect. That's what happened in the 70s. Stagflation. It's not perfect, but those things are always going to happen. There's always going to be cycles. It's not ideology. It's just numbers. Okay, I have to go. Thank you for joining me in this impromptu live. I've got to go now and actually talk to the bank about the interest rates, because they're going up in Japan and that's going to cost me. All right. If you're still here, honestly, you have no idea how much it helps if you subscribe. I'll keep these coming.